Hello, everyone. This is another episode of Gold as Girls. And my name is Carla from Walsum. And today we have a beautiful guest, Iris Weinstein, Chaggai. Sorry, I just heard it and I make it already wrong. And my co-host is Leah Jacobson. Many people on the planet know you, Iris, because of your advocacy for your parents. And your parents were brutally murdered, slaughtered, we would say, when they are doing their morning walk, coming from kibbutz village near us, on October 7th, of course. And it took you like 83 days until your family knew what happened to them, that they were, and their bodies were dragged to Gaza. A horrific story, and I get the chills when I speak about it, but also two amazing, beautiful people, because you have made a beautiful tribute on your Instagram page. And you see there, and every person that is murdered is, of course, terrible, right? Always. Well, maybe not always, if we look what happens today. It's another story. If it's your enemy that wants to kill you, that's another story. But these were such peaceful people with so much positive contribution. So you have a very difficult path to go. And all of us say, bring them back, bring them home. But also, I would say, release them, let them go, that freeing element. And I would love to give the word to Leah and to start the conversation.
So Iris, I'm sorry. How would you say this whole process changed you? What did you learn on this journey? It's been a tough journey, I imagine.
It's hard to say. I don't really look at it that way. It's just on October 7th, basically, there's me. Prior to October 7th, I was a textile designer. I was about to launch my clothing brand with my own textiles. I still am a mom of 3 beautiful girls. I have an amazing husband. We have this peaceful life in Singapore. We were just in Israel, June, me and my eldest with my parents for a month. Then October 7th. And my life completely, I wouldn't say paused, but the life as I knew it paused, like there, no more. October 7th was a day that obviously none of us can forget. But for me, I'm a person, I'm pretty rational. I don't get anxiety. I see kind of the world as it is, and I try to handle it and move forward. But on October 7th, I can't even describe to you. It's not just my parents. It's my kibbutz. 1 out of 4 of my kibbutz was either murdered or taken hostage. So on that morning, because I live in Singapore, I was 5 hours ahead. Yeah. And I knew that my parents take their morning walk every day. So I asked them, nonchalant, what's going on? Because it's nothing new that bombs and missiles are being sent towards our kibbutz. We've been bombed for 20 years. Mm-hmm. So I expected them to say everything's cool, and they'll be back soon. But meanwhile, I spoke to my friends who live on the kibbutz. They're part of my DNA. We grew up together. In my kibbutz, we used to sleep, the children would sleep together, yeah. And the parents would sleep in a different house. So basically, they're like my siblings. So, on that day, the amount of horrific things that your mind can't even comprehend, the fact that my parents are not answering, the fact that my friends, their kids are on fire, the fact that that person has been shot. There are thousands of terrorists and civilians in the kibbutz. Your mind can't even comprehend it. So that day, I can't even explain. It's like somebody just shattered your whole existence. and your life is just a nightmare. That's like, I can't even explain how that feels. Honestly, I am going through this and I still can't digest what I'm going through because it's so big. And on October 8th, I kind of woke up. I was like, I slept like maybe 30 minutes and I just decided, okay, horrific, horrible. I need to go in this operation mode and find out what happened because I had no idea what happened to my parents. All I knew is that they didn't answer me. I lost contact with my friends. I didn't know anything. So from that day, I was just looking for my parents, basically. That's also a very, very long conversation. But for 83 days, basically, we were on this hunt. What I'm trying to say is that I can't really point out how it changed me because every hour it changes me. Every second I'm changed. Every minute something changes at the negotiation table, if at all. Every minute another person tells me, oh, we found out this or this or this. Like every second, another little bit of my world changes. But basically, after I found out what happened to my parents, I took this month to like kind of finally sleep because I haven't slept in 83 days, basically. Because not knowing, and I know this sounds horrific, but not knowing is worse than actually knowing.
Yeah.
It just leaves you in this state of
Purgatory?
I don't know.
Not here, not there.
I can't even explain. Like your mind just plays tricks on you. Plus, you have all these battles you're battling with your own government, with these terrorists, with psychological terror. At one point, they released like a video saying that my mom was killed by IDF bombing or something, which is completely idiotic because we know for a fact we have evidence that they were both murdered on October 7th, taken into Gaza. But like it just shows you the amount of propaganda we need to fight, the fight that we need to fight against anti-Semitism, the fact that the world thinks that, the hostage humanitarian issue is somehow going to solve the Palestinian issue, which is an issue that's been around since 1975, sorry. I mean, the world has just gone mad. So there's so many battles and really every second I'm changed. But I'm hoping always to kind of take this trauma and help to fight terrorism, kind of move the world towards peace. And I was very, very lucky when my mom didn't come out in that only deal that we had in November, and I knew 40 of the hostages who came out. None of them saw my mom. We didn't know anything. So when I saw that she's not released, I got in touch with the Wallenberg Center for Human Rights. They are a Canadian human rights center. They are absolutely, I don't even have words to describe. They are life-saving, literally, but also for me, like my soul, because they kind of gave me purpose. Like I finally found somebody who is good-hearted, has good intentions with me. It's not an official that I need to like fight with to get information. It's not a government that I need to fight with. It's finally people who really have human rights and see the world clearly and have been doing this for very long. And ever since then, I kind of just jumped on this amazing wagon and did whatever I could with my trauma to help move things along, to fight terrorism, to help Canada list the IRGC as terror entity, and do so many things that, at least all of this death and tragedy has a meaning to me, because whatever happened on October 7th, like I can't even describe to you how I don't even want to use stupid, but it's so unnecessary, all the death. And really, like, I can't even describe to you how it feels when 1 out of every 4 people no longer exists in your life. They're just poof, they're gone, and you don't even know what happened to them. Some of them died, you know, some of them you don't know. It's a feeling that there's no way to describe it really. So
It's
Serious, I just
very
wanted to
long
jump in.
answer to a very complicated question.
No, I appreciate that. Was a great answer. But and I also wanted to mention that congratulations that Canada did list put them on the IRGC as a terrorist watch list, right? That was your
That took a
part of your
long
doing,
time.
right? So
Took
that
a
is
long time.
amazing, and
that is amazing. Yeah.
that is something you've never done before, probably, because you have totally different work, and that is, you know, the resilience that comes from people if they just choose to do that. That's certainly something that you radiate. Because I was thinking today too, preparing for our meeting, it must be hard to speak about it every time. But on the other hand, it's all the time on your mind and in your heart. So anyway, so it is just, yeah, and you said that is the intense tragedy about just killing people for no reason in the way that happened, and the gruesomeness, and then October 8th, that is, for me, I mean, I think almost for everybody that is in the situation, for me, that was almost worse. It was not worse, of course, but the heartlessness, the attacks, the laughing, the
riots,
the hate,
yeah.
the unbelief, the IDF. There is a very well respected Canadian medical doctor. He's not a psychiatrist, he's a medical doctor, and he is born in Hungary 4 months before the liberation, called it liberation, Gabor Mate. And he posted, in that time, a post that the IDF is 1,000 times worse than Hamas. And then I raised after the Holocaust, right? And with the idea we make a better world, we do our best. Well, it's in my work too. And then I'm like, how dare you? How dare you? Where is that coming from? And I think certain people demonstrating in America are not Jewish, but say they are. But and if you have the good intention, say, okay, the small group of Palestinians that I believe in the meantime, the small group in the Palestinian that you could qualify as innocent, maybe kids, of course, because kids don't have a choice and they are just part of, they cannot do anything about it. That's such a small group, and that you feel loyalty for them, yeah. But if you don't know nothing about how the problem was, and there's so much history that nobody knows, but yes, have an opinion, and the opinion is so disconnected, it's dismissive, hateful, and it becomes like, so yeah, it's not to be compared what you went through and go through, but it is still, it changed me absolutely too. I had hope after, in my own upbringing, like what the Nazis did, I know a lot about, but they got their act together. At least there was a trial, and they have made changes, and they show still loyalty. I don't expect it from Hamas or from Hezbollah or from so many others. And yeah, so we have a big problem on our plate because so many people prove we do it again and again and again. How can Israel?
It's not just the war of Israel and Hamas, you know, we're fighting an information warfare.
Yeah.
And we have this generation that's not looking into things, it's not learning history. It's getting their history lessons from the TikTok encyclopedia, you know, and yeah, it's absolutely insane. That's all I have to say.
In addition to that, in a lot of American colleges that have been royally paid or are royally paid by Qatar, and then seen as a kind of peace partner, right? And the whole program of indoctrination. One of my friends was a professor in Holocaust studies, and she was not allowed to say certain things. And there are more. There's a lot of brainwashing with an intention, that intention.
Definitely.
And yeah.
Yeah, it's all being conducted by this one terror empire, which is the Islamic regime in Iran. And they are not in a hurry to do anything. They take their time. They take 20 years. They take 30 years. They're not going to send bombs into the United States. They're going to penetrate the education system and work from within. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. And, if people don't realize it, it sounds like this huge, kind of conspiracy theory, but it's not. It's reality,
Oh, no, we're aware that, I just want to say, I did hear recently that there were 6 missiles, 6 or 8, I'm not sure, missiles found coming through the southern border of America. Mm-hmm. They came in, they're here. Yeah. So I just found out today. So it's not even just an information war. Missiles.
To challenge America, and they try to.
So Carla and I talk about this topic about, why is the left allowing all this? Like, what's in it for them? I mean, it's a complex problem. I mean, the left is opening the door to all this, radical hatred, right? So, what do you think? I mean, what's the connection that you would think? I mean, I know the people in the kibbutz were peace-loving people, right? So I'm just trying to think, do you see that? How do you see that now? I mean,
it's not. I don't think when you speak about the left in Israel is something completely different.
Yeah, then you speak about America. That's very important.
Okay.
Yeah.
The left in Israel, you have to understand, we all grow up in survival mode, something that the Western world is not aware of. People take their freedom for granted. Israelis don't. Each one of us has to go to the army. We live next to Hamas. There are constant bombs sent into Israel. It's nothing new. We are terrorized and have been terrorized for years and years and years, ever since Israel was established. So people in Israel are in constant survival mode. The left in Israel is basically a movement that believes that someday we can get into some kind of peace arrangement. Obviously women's human rights. It's like the right in Israel is very, very religious. It's really nothing like the Western world. It's a completely different field. But as far as America and the Western world, I think it's just guilt. These people are comparing the white oppression onto the Middle East, which really is a completely different world, and especially now when things have evolved in the United States. There's he, she, they, them. There's everybody is not only accepted, which is a good thing. That's a very good thing, but also forgiven for anything and everything. Everything's acceptable because everything has a reason of oppression, and they're kind of just thinking that's what's happening. Israel is the white oppressor, and you have the people of Palestinians who were conquered, just like the white people came to the United States and, massacred the Native Americans. And same with Europe, and same with all these things. And I think they're just feeling the guilt. Most of them are doing this out of good intentions. They really think they're doing something right. But the people who lead it are the people who's penetrated the education system, are unfortunately, are the immigrants who've been coming to the United States without any supervision, without any background check, people who intentionally came to democracies to make a difference. And unfortunately, that difference is not doing any justice to human rights, basically. Because if they really cared about Palestinians, they would want Hamas gone too. I mean, Let's face it. But again, it's such a huge complex, because then you have the United Nations and you have UNRWA, who's been teaching these poor refugees. How can somebody be a refugee for so many years with an organization dedicated specifically to them, it doesn't make any sense. Somebody has an agenda to keep them oppressed and in refugee state of mind. They teach them one day you'll go back to Israel because that's your homeland and you will get it back. So they're always in this bridge. They're never connected to anything except for the land of Israel. And I think it's something that the world has been kind of ignoring for years. Many people haven't. They've been fighting it, like Hillel Neuer and so many amazing people. But it's a huge complex situation. And I just think that people take freedom for granted, especially the left right now.
Yeah.
Would you say that, you say it's complex, would you say that what's complex is the fact that this goodwill, this good intentions are based on a lie, the lie that there was ever a sovereign Palestinian state anywhere? There never was in history. So if there was never, how could we be colonizing something that never existed?
I think when a lie gets repeated enough times, it becomes truth. And it's been repeated for many years and been in education systems. Right. There's books about it, history books about it. Of course, you got, the fabric of society has been so eroded by social media that every person has their own truth, entitled to their own facts. When you watch your social media feed, you get feeded the things that you want to see. So you're fed your truth, and if we can't agree on what's reality, like if society can't agree on what's true, on what's reality, it just creates division. And that's exactly what the Islamic regime wants. It wants chaos, and it penetrates all democracies. You can see them going to places where there's like democratic elections, and they're really, like, you can just look at the UK. I mean, a Hamas supporter has been elected in one of the towns there. I don't even remember his name, but it's people just, they are so disconnected from reality that it's normalized. And these are terror entities that are listed in these countries. So it's absolutely insane.
It is. You bring that up in England, and the BBC doesn't want to call Hamas a terrorist organization. They refuse that. And
it's funny because I was just in Washington and I was in an interview at BBC. And I was in the makeup room and I was listening to like the broadcast in the back. And they were talking about Hezbollah, and they were saying that Israel's committing crimes and the militant group Hezbollah and blah, blah, blah. And I was so pissed off. I'm like, how dare you bring me here and say this, even though I knew what I'm getting into. I knew who BBC is. But I came on the interview and she asked me questions and stuff. And then I had to like say something. And this was live. So I told them, listen, I was listening to your broadcast and you're speaking about Hezbollah. They're a militant group, and they are not a militant group. They are a terror entity listed in the United States, and so is Hamas. And anyway, I kept talking and I felt like I made her uncomfortable. Her legs started shaking and I saw the cameras moving back and forth. And I was like, okay, Iris, just shut up, just cut it off. And then I didn't see it because it was live. And then just 2 days ago, I was looking at the interview and I noticed that while I was speaking, they put videos of the demonstrations against Bibi in Israel while I was speaking. And I was just hearing in my head, I was like, hearing it when I was speaking about them not calling Hezbollah a terrorist group. I was just hearing the producer probably yelling at somebody, quick, put something against Israel on the screen,
How horrible.
Exactly what they did.
How horrible and disgusting.
It's so,
but that's Western media. That's what it is. It's so really. It's again. It sounds like the like this crazy, crazy thing that we're trying to say, but really the Islamic regime has penetrated so deep into these Western media outlets, into the governments, especially into Canadian governments. In every government, you'd find somebody associated with the IRGC. And that's what we're dealing with right now. And unfortunately, we're only 0.2% of this world. I'm very grateful for the non-Jewish people who, speak up, but there aren't many. There aren't many. There are, but not enough to kind of shatter the propaganda that's going on. Hopefully, with time, people will wake up. But
you talk about with
crazy.
But with time, I know Douglas Murray has mentioned in Europe there's more and more terror incidents from these organizations. So I think people are waking up. I know when you talked about the UK, there were kids that were shot in school, and Christmas shopping's disrupted by this as well. And I could go on in UK, but
it's not only there.
It's not only there. The Netherlands, France, Germany, right.
Everywhere.
So I think people are waking up, but I think not quick enough. I sometimes think of the term useful idiots, because while their hearts are big and they believe that they're doing the right thing, they're being sold a bill of goods, but people are dying because of this. So it is very dangerous. It's not just they're ignorant. This ignorance is impacting everybody.
And so how do we not taking the time to learn? They're just feeding off of 3-second videos and what their friends say, and the kafia is being sold all over. It's viral, and it's insanity. Really, it's just insanity. People are missing critical thinking skills, and it's really sad. And that's why Israel is so unique, I guess, because of that survival mode. Because people are taught to think for themselves. You see demonstrations against Bibi sometimes in Tel Aviv, even though the demonstrations you see are normally to support hostages and their families, but the media like to make everything so dramatic.
Yes.
And the Western media likes to, use that
opposite way.
Yeah. Yes, they use it as propaganda. And
they're being paid. Those demonstrators a lot.
It's also a design.
No. The demonstrators are not being paid in Israel. I'm not going to get into the Israeli government, but
no, it's not from the Israeli government. It's not from the Israeli government.
In the U.S. In the U.S. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. It is shocking, but before that Iran existed, there was, Khomeini had a nice refuge in France, right? And I think in the 70s, I don't speak about the Netherlands, that's a bit like a mirror for other countries as well in Europe. After when 67, Israel won that war and gained the territories that, originally were Jewish land, but okay. Judea, Samaria, right? The way how it was spoken about that then, just by the newspapers, was always occupied territories, colonizers, they're colonists. It was and that grew. Now, 67, people were dancing in the street, non-Jews. 73, we had to turn down the temperature, the heating, because we had the oil crisis, right? So we are not allowed to drive on Sunday. So people had to let go their comfort, and they started to get annoyed with Israel because Israel caused a problem, right? And then we had in the 80s, the Lebanon war, how terrible what happened in Beirut. But simultaneously, a lot of people from Turkey and Morocco came, and from all kinds of other countries. And I am very interested in any culture. So I totally come from that point. And I had many friends from also Somalia, from whatever other African countries. I had a partner in college that was a Moroccan guy. I learned a lot. I read the Quran. I learned a lot. And a lot of people don't understand that. So it started really at a certain moment that the Holocaust could not be taught anymore in the high schools in the 4 big cities like Amsterdam, Rotterdam, The Hague, and Utrecht. Why? Out of fear of upheaval from Muslim students. That it's like, so the Holocaust denial started. And that was one of my big shocks in my life. Like, how can you do all this extreme horror and then deny it? And that only grew. So for like the last 30 years, 40 years, the Holocaust cannot be taught. And that is only a simple country as the Netherlands that carries a lot of guilt because of 90% of the Dutch Jews have been murdered. So that altogether, people want to get rid of their feelings of guilt, and now it's the other way around, and now we are thinking we are very good if we have a big mouth about Israel and not knowing the history at all. And I think another point, the moment you bring up something about Islam, and I have good Islamic friends that taught me certain things, you become immediately an Islamophobe. If you change it for the word Jew, nobody is like, okay, you see what Israel does. When I was 21, I was a spokesperson for Amnesty International as a volunteer. And then in Amsterdam, and it was for a South American country, and suddenly there came some Palestinians, then already, and shouting about Israel and the Jews, and they went a bit off, and I was scared. It was the first time that it was in my face, and I was very young and vulnerable, and I wear Magen David. And I went to my upline, and I said, this is not okay. We demonstrate here for the freedom of people in other country, and I get personally threatened, and these things you allow. Yeah, but you should see what Israel does. And that was in the late 70s, 80s, early 80s. So done with Amnesty International since then. Because that biasness, and a lot of people think, oh, but that's a nice organization. Oh, the UN, biggest joke, Iran on the chair for women's rights. Really, holy sholy. It's like crazy, and it's all accepted. And you said it so nicely, Iris, about in Israel you learn to think. That's the way I raise my kids too. You need to be an independent thinker. You need to dare to take decisions, not afraid for the outcome. And that is an educational system that is not widely practiced, I think. That is also a difference. You guys.
That's an interesting point, Carla. I just wanted to jump in for a second because that we saw this in Russia. Anyone that's in or the intellectuals that were killed first in World War II, anyone that's thinking independently is a threat to the regime, any regime. Yeah, it's the young people that are thinking. So
this brings me to a very interesting interview, and that is with the CEO, the diary of the CEO, with, I don't know the first name, it's Władysław, whatever, last name is Kissing. He is from Russia, he's Jewish, he studied in England, and he wrote a book, Love Letter to the West. And he explains it so extremely well, how the whole model from Russia is penetrated and people don't get it. So now let's go back to your situation. What are your prognoses, Iris? What do you think? What are you probably your everyday is different. What do you feel? What do you think is going to happen? What is your next step? Terrible, huh? Terrible.
Hope for the best. I don't have the privilege to not be hopeful. I have friends who are currently hopefully still alive in Gaza, and I need to free them, and I need my parents to come home to burial so we can have closure. So my 8-year-old stops asking me, Mommy, if they're dead, where's the grave? So I can go somewhere. In a few days, it's been a year since they've been murdered, supposedly. And I don't even have a grave to go to. I don't have anything. So what will happen? Let's hope good will happen. We will prevail like we always do, but at what cost, I don't know. I'll continue to use everything I can. I'm very fortunate to have Canadian citizenship and American citizenship. So I have really amazing access to the American administration. We always meet with high officials there almost every 2-3 weeks. Last week in DC, and just keep keep giving ideas, keep having a conversation of what we can do to, get the hostages out, with the really amazing, I would say amazing because it is amazing. I can't really dismiss that, but with the amazing, assassination, I would say, of Nasrallah and everybody. It's amazing, but I keep asking myself, okay, how are the hostages going to pay for these things?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, the facts are that they're not out. And until they're out, I don't know what will be. It really, again, it changes every second with the way the world is. Yesterday and 2 days ago, Nasrallah was alive. Suddenly he's not. Let's see what's going to happen. I don't know. But with everything that changes, I kind of change my own perspective because the game changes. It's like chess, unfortunately. And with this horrific trauma, we've kind of become these diplomats, activists, whatever we can do to help, So I can't really predict what will happen, but I can tell you that I will not stop definitely until my friends are out, until all 101 hostages are out. And, after that, I don't even know what will happen, but maybe I can even start to mourn my parents, my friends who were murdered, a whole family of my friends were burnt alive in Oz. Like my mom, my mind can't even comprehend that they're not alive. It's just, I can't even digest that. I can't even start to mourn my parents. None of it makes sense to me still. I'll be in Israel, well, hopefully October 7th. I don't know. But we'll see.
Will you stay in Singapore or will you go back in a while or you will stay there?
No, we've been living here for a while. We've been living here for 4 years. We lived in Sydney before. Basically 2017, we moved to Sydney. I kind of realized I had one child at the time. And I realized after many, many years that we've been bombed, that we're going to just live under terror forever because nothing is being done. And I didn't want to raise my kids like that, honestly. I didn't want to raise my kids like that. So we were very fortunate. My husband got a job in Australia. Well, he was offered a job. And we moved there, obviously never with the intention to never come back. But Singapore is a very safe bubble to live in right now.
Yeah, and that is important for your kids too. I can totally see that.
Quick question. What was life like? You said there were, for you in the kibbutz, you said there were, bombs going off, but were there any moments of peace?
No.
Always fear. Always fear.
Prior to 2005, I would say 2003, 2000s, even before that, we used to go to the beach in Gaza. So I would call that peace. But, we didn't leave Gaza yet. So Israel was ruling Gaza, or at least occupying Gaza, whatever you would want to call it. So it was cool. People were living together. They had restaurants side by side in Gaza, 5-minute drive into the beaches, beautiful beaches in Gaza. So I would call that peace. But ever since Hamas came into power and they had this whole thing with Fatah before they got into power, no peace, nothing. It was insane. Yeah. But again, we always say it's 90% heaven, 10% hell, because it's such a beautiful kibbutz, and not really objective, but it's really one of the most beautiful kibbutzes I've seen. And it's not big. It's only 400 people. Well, it used to be 400 people. So it's basically a big family, and now they're all refugees. And they don't know what they're going to do. You can't even plan ahead for your future because you don't even know where you're going to be. Some kids are still waiting for their father to come back. It's insane, really.
And unbearable altogether. Is there something you would ask that you could ask for now, that some help or any idea that you say that might be nice to share that for the people that watch the video, if they could do something?
You know, people always ask me, like, how can we help? And, you know, the only thing I can think of is like what you're doing. Be our ambassadors, you know, just, you know, everybody has their own circle. Even if they speak 5 minutes of what's going on, tell the story of Neil Oz, tell the story of my parents, tell the story of what's truth. You know, every person has a circle, and the circle gets bigger. And yeah, just be our ambassadors. You know, it's not easy now, I know. And, you know, even though I'm going through my trauma, I think every Jewish person around this world is going through a trauma right now. And it's very important to, you know, stand for justice, speak your truth, don't be scared. You know, it's better to speak up than to stay quiet. I always say that it's not always
Easy.
risk-free, definitely not easy, but your heart will feel good because you're doing something, and you think it might be small, but it's huge because you're touching lives, and you never know which life you're going to touch. It might be a life that can change the whole world. And even if not, that life can touch somebody who can change the whole world. And by that, you're changing the whole world. Yeah. So yeah, just be our ambassadors and tell truth. And don't forget the hostages. There are 101 hostages still in Gaza being tortured in underground tunnels that our tax money paid for. We paid for it.
Yeah.
We paid, not only Israelis, Americans,
Europe,
Dutch, European Union, Canadians. You know, thankfully, the US stopped funding UNRWA, but Canada refunded them. We actually have a lawsuit against Canada for doing that.
Great.
And yeah, so, you know, people are kind of celebrating the death of Nasrallah and, you know, Henya. And I'm like, okay, but like my parents are still not out. How does this progress 101 people who are still left to rot in Gaza? Like, let's bring them back first, and then we can take over the whole world, you know? They don't have time. They didn't have time.
Yeah. That is also a perspective. And it is so hard to see what is the best step to take. If you don't negotiate, like Bibi said years ago, never negotiate about this, then you don't get anything. We have seen with Gilad Shalit, right? 1,000+ people. There's some negotiation has been there. And what I understand too is in the Middle East, say it like that, there's the most respect for the strongest one.
I don't think they want negotiations. We tried that so many times. It's never worked. I just wanted to say, Iris, that you sounded like your mother. I know her heroes, she said, were Florence Nightingale and Harriet Tubman. But just in the last 2 sentences, I think she would have been very proud of you.
It was so well said. Absolutely.
I just had to say that it was just one person touching another soul. I could see where
and it's so
you got that from.
So beautifully said, and you do that, and that is the positive thing that comes out of it for me, to meet people like you, to have these conversations.
Yeah.
And we take that very seriously, and that gave me a kind of positive thing because I was extremely down. I could not do my work well. I only wanted to work with my clients that I knew already and could trust, Jewish clients, and I stopped my workshops. They're about emotional healing. I was like, I cannot bear one wrong word. And I explode. I go to cry or go whatever I do. So let's now go to our beautiful habit that we have always done at the end of our conversations, interviews. What is our anti-Summit of the week?
Well, there's so many. So my anti-Summit of the week, the day, is the world, basically, because if let's put it this way. If Hamas didn't have international support, it wouldn't exist for 1 second. But it does. And people don't ask themselves why. And that's also part of the reason my parents aren't out of Gaza right now. My friends are still held hostage because there's no pressure on Hamas. They have nothing to lose. They have the Western countries completely supporting them, pointing fingers at Israel, saying absurd things about this democracy, the only democracy in the Middle East. But, you know, like UN Ambassador Danon said, he said it's far easier to criticize a democracy than to face the reality of dealing with terrorists. And that's exactly the world right now. And it's heartbreaking, honestly. And we need more pressure on Hamas. We need the international community to stand against breaking of humanitarian law. My parents were murdered and their bodies were intentionally and systematically taken into Gaza, stolen from their lives, from our lives, and they are being kept there for 1 year already as bargaining chips. Is that not against every humanitarian law ever? There are literally UN resolutions about this, yet nobody's speaking about it, yet Israel bombs Hezbollah and kills Nasrallah, and they talk about 1701. What about 2474 that demands the immediate release of hostages? What about that? Nobody cares about that. So the world is the number one anti-Semite, excluding the amazing people who are not. And you know who you are, and I want to thank whoever. I want to thank you guys, and I want to thank all the people who are brave to stand next to us, beside us, to stand, speak their truth. You know, you're not unappreciated. You're very appreciated, and thank you all so much.
Wow, that is so wonderful. We could barely.
So well said.
Yeah. So Leah, yours.
Well, my anti-Semite of the week, it's the Biden-Harris administration. I mean, it's refusing to provide intelligence support to Israel in its fight against Iranian-backed Hezbollah terrorists in southern Lebanon. They have thwarted Israel throughout this war, and they continue to do so. They also, regarding UNRWA employees, I believe this week as well, the ones that were connected to terror there was some move to not hold them accountable. So, I mean, this is all coming from this administration. You know, in addition to the money that was allowed to go to Iran to pay the Hamas terrorists to do this October 7th. So the Biden-Harris administration, every step of the way is definitely leading the way in anti-Semitism. So they get the.
I just want to put out there that don't believe everything that's on the media. Okay? There's a lot of psychological terror in media, and I just want to say that I see what you're saying, but I don't believe that Biden is an anti-Semite at all. Even though he's been doing things that aren't helping, he is definitely a Zionist. But made bad decisions. That I can completely agree on. Yeah, I'm just going to say that don't believe everything that's in the media on all sides. It's all psychological terrorism.
Yeah.
As far as Harris, I don't know. I'm not going to comment on that, but definitely not. Doesn't seem like she's offering anything to Israel. But again, I don't see her offering anything to anybody. I don't even know what she's offering, honestly. So I don't know if I see the anti-Semite there, but she might prove you're right. Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Yeah, I find it very well how you see that, Iris. I could see that what we have seen, that the people she chooses when she would be elected, most of them are so pro-Palestinian.
Yeah,
and
her cabinets.
Anti-Zionist and anti-Jewish, and a lot of them have roots from Palestinian roots or Muslim roots in this case. So that is giving, and then you don't have to have a hate for Jews. No, you're not an anti-Semite. But if you do that, then, and she has also spoken to the sister of Rashida Tlaib, who wanted to speak about an embargo on certain weapons. And she said, we can discuss that. that is not a strong attitude. So I don't think you have to be an anti-Semite per se, but your actions can be so detrimental for Israel.
Of course, it sends a message also. It's ignorance. That's what it is. It's ignorance that's adding to the anti-Semitism. I completely agree.
And it is terrible if
That's well said.
president of America is ignorant. And I know that
and they don't realize that they're next. That's the real issue of America.
That's another video. Yeah, indeed. Well, I have a simple contribution I chose for my, and it's the same thing. Yeah, I call it still let me say that anti-Zionist, which is for me the same. Her name is Jill Stein, and she is the leader of the third party in America that doesn't seem to grow. But what I saw with her, she was wearing the Palestinian shawl. I forget the name at this moment now, but it's not keffiyeh. Is it keffiyeh?
Yeah.
And she was in a demonstration, a pro-Hamas demonstration. And then if you want to prove something that you're Jewish, if you're Jewish, which she is, and you think you're a better Jew than the others that do different things and think different things, I think you sell your soul at such a moment too for the vote you hope to get from that particular group. And then the smiles or the smirks you get if you ask a question, and it is that really, I find it so appalling. Is it totally anti-Semitic if you think about it? Well, it's very detrimental for Jews, and it's very detrimental for the Jewish world, and it's very detrimental for Islam. So, let me call her a scumbag today instead of anti-Semite, but I find it terrible. Now, time for something better.
Carla, wait a second. Can I just say something? I think it's not just that you sell your own soul. You're selling out other Jews' souls.
Yes, you betray.
It's not just you. If it was just you, it wouldn't be so bad.
Good point. The betrayal is terrible.
It's betrayal of others. We're all connected. We're truly connected as Jews. So you throw one. We're all representatives. So we can't throw.
Thank you. You cannot say never again. And like Yochai Sponder said, never ever again. We go now, never ever ever again. I mean, we go on and on. It's must speak. Any hero for you, Iris, or do you want to wait a second?
My hero is without a doubt my father. I mean, he's been my hero my whole life. At first when we didn't know really what happened, like I kept saying in interviews, my biggest fear is that my dad's gonna die. Like, I don't know why, but when I grew up, like, that's all I thought about. Like, what am I gonna do when my dad dies? Like, for some reason. So he's definitely my hero. He taught me, well, not just him, my mom as well, but I'm a daddy's girl, what can you do? I'm the eldest. He taught me to be true to yourself. He taught me, he was my compass, my moral compass. He was creative. He always kept the child in him, he never like restricted himself to like, comply with other I don't know, normalizations, especially when you grow up in a kibbutz, you're kind of expected to be somebody specific. And my dad kind of always went against the norm, and you could see he was a musician, so he was very creative. And you could see that the younger teenagers and even 20-year-olds always kind of were drawn to him because he was accepting of every behavior and just be who you are, and that kind of gave us, we are 4 siblings, it gave us the room to grow and find out who we are without him kind of, also my mom, without them telling us what we need to do. You have to do this, you have to be this, you have to do that. They kind of gave us the privilege of making mistakes, accepting people who are different, accepting us if we are different. And just being on my moral compass always. I always like try and hear what he says to me. And actually on October 7th, that night, I tried to sleep and I kind of smelled his smell. I can't even explain it. But like right then I knew, okay, Abba was killed. You know, nobody told me this. There was no intelligence. Nobody even spoke to us. But I kind of knew in my head for sure, like there's just no way. So yeah, you know.
You sense his spirit. Wow.
Yeah, definitely. But I have so many heroes, really. And I found so many heroes throughout this process. You know, there's this person from the Wallenberg Center. His name is Brandon Silver, and I'm sure you'll hear a lot about him. He's been working with Professor Irvin Kotler, who's incredible. And really, people don't give him enough credit. He's changing the world. He's incredible, and he does everything with such a huge heart. And, you know, in this new life, post October 7th, he's my new hero. So many
wonderful. Wonderful. That are gifts, if you want it or not. Wow.
Silver linings.
Yeah.
Definitely silver linings.
Yeah.
But also all the hostage families, the fact that really people don't collapse is unfathomable. I mean, some people for 1 year, they don't even have proof of life. I just didn't have it for 83 days and I was going insane. I can't even imagine 360 days today. Yeah. 360 days. Well, for you, it's 59. I can't even, like, they're heroes too.
Oh yeah,
so, many heroes.
Be the parent of those girls, yeah.
It's crazy, crazy. Her mommy's behind you, and her mom is amazing.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Thank you.
We can't stop talking. Leah.
Well, I have two. The first one is Senator from Arkansas, Tom Cotton. He's such an advocate for Israel. He's one of the strongest voices, along with Josh Hawley, who fights against anti-Semitism. I think he's from Missouri, or I think so. But Tom Cotton, he said that Israel needs to finish Hezbollah once and for all. There's also retired Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster. He said this administration needs to step up to help Israel fight against Iranian terrorism. He said this in a CBS Face the Nation interview this week, both of them. They are standing up. Marco Rubio from Florida also spoke up. These senators are really the most pro-Israel ones. I have another hero, a good friend of mine who just passed away. She was such an advocate for Israel. She took people from Boston on trips to Israel. It was called Vacation with a Soul. And she and her husband created it, and it was the Boston-Haifa connection, and she just passed away. But such a staunch Zionist. She wrote a poem at age 11 about Israel, and there were hundreds of people from Haifa watching her funeral today. But so humble. She made you feel like you were the most important person in the room, and she just inspired so many people to love Israel more and to get in touch with Israel, not just an idea, but the people, the children, the families, and so active. So yeah, she's definitely a hero. Like you were saying, Iris, we're all ambassadors. She was definitely an ambassador. So
wow.
It's amazing.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Here's my surprise.
What is it?
My hero is you. I told you already, is Iris.
Yes.
Aww. You say that to everyone.
No, she doesn't.
I'm just
the first time I do this, actually. And that's how I look at you, because honestly, to go through what you go through, I cannot imagine, because I'm not in the same shoes. I can get somewhere, that's it. And then to see what you do, and also the conversation we had today, the way you speak, what the things you do, that is very, very powerful. And that's not about ego, to take that in, but it is really, it is fantastic. You do that and you help others with that too. And you also, like your parents did to you, you're an amazing example for your children too, to stand up for such an important thing. It's so, so, so important. And you do it.
Thank you so much.
And we support you. If we can help you in one way or another way, let us know.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you for everything you do.
Yeah, thank you. So, wow. Shall we talk a little bit more? No.
Iris, you're an inspiration.
Another time.
You really are. I just had to second that because you really, really are.
You are. Yes, you are.
I can see the apple did not
You
fall too
speak
far
very
from the tree.
eloquently. You speak excellently English, and you're very, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to listen to you, even though the topic is so horrific, I would say. And the whole thing around it.
I think just if I don't do this, I will collapse in depression. So that's what kind of keeps me going. So I just, I definitely just don't have a choice. That's how I see it. I guess it's part of what my parents taught me. It's like, don't get stuck in the past. Like I always tell people, yes, October 7th happened, but it's still happening. Like, don't get stuck on that day because, even though I love hugs, I don't need a hug now. I need action. I need people to, as you said, as you do, be our ambassadors and, only that way the Jewish people, the Israeli people, not just Jewish, but also Arabs are being affected by this. Jews, and people don't understand this, like the propaganda of oppression and of colonialism and genocide. Like it's all just so ridiculous, but people don't get it. The other day I was at like a doctor, I was doing my blood tests. I was making sure that I'm not dying. No, I'm just kidding. But, she was asking me like, what's going on? Why are you coming here? And I'm like, listen, I've been through a very tough year. I gained a lot of weight. I used to like eat very, very, very healthy. Now I don't really care anymore. Like all I care is, what's going on elsewhere.
Yeah.
And she said, why? And I told her like what happened, and she was shocked. And then she was like, it's really horrific what's going on there, right? But you can understand both sides, she tells me.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, what side is this exactly? And honestly, this is not the first time that I'm hearing this. I'm also hearing this, and I don't want to put my family on blast, family that lives outside of Israel. But I also heard this from family members outside of Israel who never lived in Israel. There are two sides. No, there are not two sides. There is one side. The one side is justice, human rights, and the violations of human rights. That's the side, not just for Jewish people, but Palestinian people, the Iranians, the Syrians, the Lebanese, the Yemen, like, that's the side you should be in, the human rights side, the one that advocates for peace. There will never be peace if we don't take care of these terror groups. It's that simple. That's also what Harris fails to understand. And that's why Obama released the $150 billion to Iran. And that's why Biden released the $6 billion to Iran. It's not because they are bad people. It's because they don't realize these people don't think like us. They are jihadists.
Ignorant.
It's ignorance. They think that they will buy. By the way, it's just like Bibi did with Hamas. Okay, let's not get it twisted that Israel is the saint here, but they thought they will buy these terrorists with money.
Yeah, the hope to create. Yeah.
Yes, because they said, okay, if we help them build hospitals, help them build schools, help them build this nation into this amazing, amazing, great place, that maybe they won't need to terrorize because now they have money. But they didn't realize.
It could have gone differently. I have more sympathy for Bibi with that gesture, though, than for the gesture of giving all that money to Iran. Because that's a totally different story. Because you think, that's the Western way of thinking, and I thought that myself for years. Well, if the Palestinians, like you heard it after October 7th from the army talk, we thought they are working in Israel, they have it good, they have their stuff, they have, if you give, if that's not enough, of course, but that's not Israel's fault, that is Hamas' fault. They get their own peace. I think they make Singapore out of it, right? Of Abu Dhabi.
But that's not what you said. But let's not put Bibi on blast here.
Well, Iris, you said it.
Definitely
Iris
are.
said it's a long-term goal. It's not money.
Yeah.
The long-term goal isn't money.
No,
No, but-
let's not forget that Khomeini said that by 2040, he's gonna completely get rid of Israel. Like that's his goal, and he's gonna do it. If the Western countries don't wake up now,
Yeah.
that's what's gonna happen because he doesn't plan 5 years ahead. This guy plans 40 years ahead. Just like with the education system in Western society. This is not a joke, and we should take it seriously, and the administration should take it seriously. But like it's ignorance. People just don't realize that these people don't think like them. They don't want peace. That's not part of their vocabulary. They form a jihadist, extremist, occupying state of mind, and that's what they're doing in Iran too. The Iranians are not a reflection of their government currently. And that's what people fail to understand. You know, I have, unfortunately, throughout this nightmare, I've come to know many Iranian activists and many Iranian families with hostage in Iran. And they always tell me, you know, your government has to stop saying Iran. It's not Iran. This is jihadists who's been occupying us since 1979. And that's what it is. They got rid of their courts. They got rid of their government diplomats. They got rid of everything. They made women wear their hijab. If not, they killed them. Like people just, I'm not understanding how they can't see this. But again, I had to go through this trauma in order to realize all these things as well. Like I knew the surface, but I didn't know the magnitude of this.
There is an additional problem to it, and that is mentioned a lot either, is that there is a waqf, which is a law in Sharia law, and that's a very serious law, that if Muslims live in the land or conquer even the land, conquer by force, they should never give it back. So the more religious you are, the more you're stuck in that theory, and nobody thinks about that. And that is also part of a big... Now we have to cut this video in two.
Definitely.
Let's close it here. Let's hope for something. That's a bit a cheap term to say, let's hope for something. We can only hope, do our best. And
let's take inspiration from everything Iris is doing. And I learned so much from this conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Hopefully we see the hostages come out soon. And
yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Let's hope for miracles. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're definitely awake and thinking for yourself. And I appreciate that. We both do.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
All the best.
Have a good night.
Also,
Thank you.
Good night.